for me personally, it was so very pleasant experience because at first Teemu made it very clear for me that it was more than enough for me even just to be present in our meetings. So I didn't feel pressure to do anything more, and eventually it was easy to get more involved and take responsibilities.
Okay, so you actually liked the fact that when you came to be involved as a new member or a supporter, you didn't have too much responsibility, but you were made to feel like it matters that you are just there. So do you
Yeah,
think that was like a good thing for a newcomer?
yeah, just like that. It felt like I did enough and it felt good.
Okay, so I think when you start with that, it's a good thing for newcomers. But then you also have to figure out what they are good at, what they want to do, so they can actually fulfill themselves. And after a while, it probably starts feeling like, okay, I'm coming to these meetings and I'm participating in this consensus decision making and giving my ideas. But I think after a while, you should start asking them specifically using their name, like if they want to take uh, some tasks or projects for their responsibility. If we decide to do some project, then we can ask if you would like to be responsible for this. I think that might be a good thing. I don't know if I did that with you.
Yeah, you did just that. Little by little, I got more responsibilities and got to do more things.
Very good. So it's important to make sure that everybody feels involved and is involved in what the chapter is doing. What
Yeah.
about Marco? What was your experience when you came to the movement? Um,
Well,
in yeah,
yeah. Uh,
go ahead.
okay. Well, I first heard about the movement like in 2010, and it was in from the radio actually.
Oh, really?
Radio Rock. Henry Brade was there to be interviewed, and I heard him talk about the movement, and uh, I was very excited about it, and I was immediately in the internet digging for more information, and
What about when you joined our chapter? What was it easy to join? Did you feel like it was hard for a new person to join our chapter?
well, not at all. I
Well,
feel it was like
what made it
I was
what made it easy?
well, maybe it's because I'm an extrovert. I like people.
Okay, but it was easy to find us. I guess you came to our event first, right?
Yes, yes. That Zeitgeist day.
Yeah, and then came to talk to us, and I think we suggested you to apply for our core group.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's one way of doing it. Okay, so I think we could move forward now and start with the actual information about coordination and move forward with the agenda and you can ask questions when you feel like it. So feel free to interrupt me and feel free to ask questions at any point. So it's really important to have you here and to learn about these skills. And I think the first thing would be to kind of read this introduction to coordinating TZM. So do you have this text open? I can actually share my screen with you, so that will make it easier.
Yes, because I'm recording, I can't like. Yeah.
Okay, so you see my mouse moving at the moment, right?
Yep.
And you can see now the text.
Yep.
Great. Okay, so here's the text which is adapted from the chapter's guide, which I really recommend you read. And there's a quote in the beginning that I would like to read to you. Quote, unlike most movements and organizations today that operate according to a hierarchical system, our purpose takes shape around a shared set of understandings, which is the body of ideas that we have collectively agreed to support and hope that others eventually do too. This allows the movement to be leaderless and holographic in nature, operating on a basis of voluntary contribution and consensus. Both the concept and role of a leader become redundant when groups share responsibility for completing tasks, making decisions, and achieving outcomes. I think this is important for a couple of reasons. Um, well, just to tell you a little bit, the reason there's this quotation marks on we and our is because TZM doesn't see, or our train of thought doesn't view us as separate from others, and that's actually quite important to realize that we are all on the same side, and we are not against any group of people. We want to involve everybody because the changes that we are looking for are holistic, they are structural, they apply to everyone, and everybody is part of the zeitgeist of the day that we are living, and manifestations of the cultural era and the climate. So it is really one of the reasons why we have these quotation marks in this quote. But key things here is the lack of hierarchy that is the goal, at least for the Zeitgeist movement. The fact that we have the shared set of understandings around which the organization or the actions are organized, and then we do not have leaders. We have coordinators, and we will get to that later. And the holographic nature of the organization means that it's see-through. It's not like secret. People can see what we do and how we do it, and we are open to everybody, and we want to involve everybody in the organization of the movement. And it is a voluntary movement, so we work with by volunteering our free hours as much as anybody can in reasonably in within the system that we now live in, where we do not have a lot of free time, but we use what we have, and also we base our actions on consensus or rational consensus that we'll also talk about later. So this means that if there is an idea, others can comment on it and criticize it, and then we will work together in agreeing what the best options for action would be, or projects, for example. And the goal that the Zeitgeist movement has tried to have has been not to have a leader, but to have people understand the fact that they need to start doing projects on their own. They need to take responsibility and ownership of their ideas and actions, and become a leader-full movement instead of like a leader-less movement. That's what Brandon Christie always says, and I really like the way he puts it. So I think that's a good kind of summary to begin with. To define the chapter coordination and responsibilities, so the first thing is that when you are defining the core of the new chapter that you're about to put together, or if you want to kind of update your existing chapter, you have to start with the coordination of the chapter. And if you do not have if you do not have this coordination, your chapter will fall into permanent disorganization because of the simple fact that there is no responsibility on anyone to do any of the core tasks of maintaining and developing the chapter. So you can see already here how it is actually a process that takes a long time to get people to realize the fact that they need to start doing things on their own. Unfortunately, there is this sort of group mentality and tendency to follow a leader and just do the tasks that are assigned to you and not take on assignments yourself. And coordinating is therefore something that has to happen. So you have to have this organization. But the coordinators, what they actually do is he or she organizes and manages information within the chapter, including reports and meetings, stays informed of movement activity, and informs other chapter tires and members. Coordinators support and provide counseling to project managers within the chapter. They review and validate sub-chapters, coordinators, and project proposals in the chapter, ensure the accuracy and integrity of the movement representation throughout the chapter website and activism, and I think social platforms as well. They're responsible for the appropriate use and privacy of the chapter mailing lists and other important administrative data. They pursue a conflict-free work-oriented environment, and if necessary, they act as a mediator within the chapter, and also manage the chapter's email address list. So these are the kind of things that a coordinator does. If you think about becoming a coordinator, that's the most things that you will do involve these things listed here. So it's not like you command people to do things. You don't have that power. You organize information. You connect people to each other. You help them by giving them a sense of direction, motivating them, help them understand some concepts or the way the movement works or thinks. In a sense, you should have the TZM defined red, so you know what the movement represents and know enough detail to help people in the chapter. So it's kind of your responsibility to be there to represent the movement and ensure that things get done, and be there to do it as well. And your responsibility is to make sure that everything is honest, everything, so we don't exploit anybody's privacy or anything like that. We want to be the kind of chapter that you can trust. So that's something that the coordinator can help achieve. Continuing with the introduction, you can, if you have a larger chapter, you can have sub-chapters, and coordinators must focus on supporting and growing them. In Finland, we now have the national chapter that I coordinate with the core group, of which you two are a part of as well. But then you both have groups in Seinäjoki and Lahti. And I don't think I've done as good a job as I should in supporting and growing you, but you know, I've wanted to make sure that I'm there if you need me, and I have tried to come to your meetings as well. I haven't as of yet, but I hope to do so. But at least since you're a part of the core group, I have made sure that we have a good information flow. You know what's going on, and now we even have some projects that are delegated to the Lahti chapter with the learning environment, for example, a project we're doing here. So I hope that is something that that I have managed to do, even though I haven't paid enough attention on the subchapters. But that's something coordinators should keep in mind. If you have subchapters coming in, then you need to know how to deal with them and keep them in the loop. And if you have multiple coordinators, you need to ask the team of coordinators the following questions. Who is going to help the development of subchapters? Who is going to integrate project management and make sure projects are developing properly? That's really important, because otherwise projects might get distributed, so people think that others are already doing it, and then nobody ends up doing it. So it's important to manage them. And who is going to maintain and keep current the chapter and subchapter websites? So website maintenance is one aspect that coordinators need to delegate. And who is going to organize chapter meetings, gather and organize reports, interact with the global movement by reporting and relaying to information back and forth. So if you have multiple coordinators, you need to divide these. If there is only one coordinator, you do all of these as well as you can, and try to delegate your own time so that you can do all of these reasonably well. So, for example, I haven't been working on the website as much. We started by making it as good as it needs to be, and then I haven't been coordinating that, but there isn't anybody else coordinating it actively, so it's just maintaining, basically. So I have focused as a coordinator more on projects, managing projects, helping to see that they are done, and also I have been organizing chapter meetings, gatherings, events, and interacting with the global movement, and relaying information and keeping people involved, motivated, and in touch with each other. So there's trade-offs. If you invest in something, then you won't have the resources to invest in something else. So coordinator has to kind of see their strengths and evaluate the importance of each of these tasks. And and if you have more than one coordinator, then it's important to make very clear who is responsible for what. So assign tasks and check that the items that there is a responsible person for get done. And this is an active task. And there should be one person who has this role of internal group management. So seeing that coordinators do what they are supposed to do. Okay, so let me just see what would be the optimal way of approaching this. I think that I should just continue with the managing expectations part that you can see here, and I will ask you a couple of questions then regarding your expectations, and we will go from there and allow more of a conversation. So maybe I will start with this first. So what do you guys think are your expectations for the Zeitgeist movement and the chapter activity? If you think about starting coordination, what do you think are your expectations?
Well, my expectations for... I can hear myself right now. It's really hard to speak. Well, my expectations are for our local chapter is just to keep it sustainable and keep going with. I don't want that the chapter dies out or something. So I just want that there is a local chapter for people of Lahti if they are interested in the Zeitgeist movement, so they have someone or something to approach. So that is my number one priority.
Okay, well that is a good expectation to have. It's not too high and it's not too low, I think, because you could say that, well, for example, you only want to have a WhatsApp group, which is maybe a good first step, but I don't think it's a high enough expectation for a chapter, because a chapter should be more than just that, or at least strive to be more. And you're not expecting to build a resource-based economy plan for the city of Lahti and transition within the next 4 years. So you know the limits of your resources, which is really good. It keeps it more sustainable and prevents a kind of burnout in the long term. What about Marko? What are your expectations for the movement and the Finnish chapter, for example?
Well, actually, in the Seinäjoki, for example, I'm now trying to get people more involved in the national projects and the global projects, because I think that's more relevant than just working in Seinäjoki.
All right. So that's good. And your focus seems to be on just the next step, like getting the word out there, and that's like your goal, is it?
Yeah, I try to be like an information provider in the Facebook group of the Seinäjoki chapter.
What about in Lahti, Juuso? Do you think that applies to you as well?
Well, I'm not so sure about that. We have Facebook group of Zeitgeist movement of Lahti, and it has, I think it's made in 2011 or something like that, but there has not been any activity in 3 or 4 years now, only my own posts, and our activity is mostly face-to-face interaction and live meetings, so we don't operate so much on social media or internet.
Okay, so as far as I understand, your objective is to understand better and not so much to share it to everybody else.
Yeah, we have these discussion meetings where our aim is to teach and learn about resource-based economy and stuff like that, sustainability and science and other themes of the Zeitgeist movement, and we group to discuss about these and try to get more people and our friends especially to attend these meetings.
All right, so let me read you what they say in the chapter's guide, or what it says there about the expectations regarding the movement. So they should take into account the nature of work done on a voluntary basis by intrinsically motivated individuals who are adding the work to their already busy schedules. If at any time a person is unable to contribute their time and work due to family, health, relocation, job, or other personal matters, it is expected they may choose to discontinue or at least pause their volunteer work. The expectations of a coordinator, therefore, need to allow for varied cycles of productivity that reflect a continuous rotation of new volunteers stepping in and some experienced volunteers stepping out on an ongoing basis. For this reason, we try to automate and standardize as much as possible in our communications so that we can easily retain momentum with new volunteers. Despite attempts to facilitate ease of chapter functioning, a certain level of both patience and creative problem solving are required when working within the limitations of volunteers and resources. So this is more expectations on what the chapter activity it will be like. So it's really important. I always well, this was something that I really had to understand before I became a coordinator, that it's intrinsically motivated individuals who add this work to their schedules. So if somebody wants to quit for whatever reason, they can choose to do so or pause the work that they do. So a coordinator's expectations need to allow for this, and this cycle of productivity needs to be embraced so that you are always looking for new volunteers and you are ready to let go the friends that you have made that need to stop what they have been doing. For example, I've been through one full chapter cycle in the Finnish chapter where all the people that I started the chapter with have now moved on or have paused their activism because of personal reasons. And now we have a new group of people working for the Finnish movement. So I think that you need to kind of prepare for that mentally, so you're not too attached, not get burned out when kind of your friends go away, because you will get new friends as we have this new core group. Everybody who comes in and is active is really amazing people, and you just need to understand that you may lose kind of the friends that you have. I mean, you never lose them, but you won't see them as often, and then you will make new ones. But that's something you have to understand and accept as a coordinator, and it can be hard, and maybe it can even be discouraging for many who start coordinating in the Zeitgeist movement, because there is this chapter cycle. So that's something that I would like to put emphasis on. And it takes patience with volunteers, and it takes problem-solving skills, and a lot of learning is involved in this. And understanding the limitations of volunteers and resources is really important. And what to expect as a chapter coordinator, it is really important not to become discouraged. If you feel like it is taking a while for other volunteers to step up and assist you in planning and executing awareness-raising events and activities. Every chapter once started with at least one person making some kind of effort to share this knowledge with others in some way. Some chapters had only one person spreading information for up to a year before they had others step up to assist, and the chapter began growing. The important thing is that you are making an effort to inform people of where they can find out more solutions to the problems they perceive if they are interested. You are sowing seeds that may take a while to grow. Coordinators who are self-directed, self-motivated, and derive pleasure from simply starting new conversations where they are and enjoy meeting new people tend to fare best over time and getting something started. I wanted to read this one fully. I won't read everything that is after this. You will have the document as a link in the description of this video later on, and Juuso and Marco, you have access to this document already, so you can read this in your own time. We'll go through it in a more discussion manner, but I wanted to read this because this relates to what I said earlier. Like, you don't be discouraged about anything. You have to understand that what you do is important in its own right, and it's not. You're not kind of expecting everybody else to do the same as you are. You don't do this for anybody else in a way. You do it because it's the right thing to do, and your expectations should allow for whatever happens. And it takes a while to get new volunteers, as we've discussed. So in Finland, the chapter that I kind of reorganized after it had died started with just me taking initiative and doing the effort and and starting with connecting people and having a small step that we could first take, a small step that I could do myself, but that was something that I wanted to get other people excited about, and what I thought was important to do, whether or not the chapter actually got started. So it kind of helps if your first steps are easily manageable, and if you can get people involved with them with you. So that's like something that it takes a while, but when you get your like other supporters to do things with you and start having meetings, that's when the chapter begins to grow, and you can share things and share your resources and your knowledge. But it can be slow at first, as I'm sure you know with your local chapters. But this is good for anybody who is new and wants to start a chapter to understand. So it might take a while, but it's definitely worth it. And you have to be self-directed, self-motivated. You have this inner motivation and derive pleasure from the act of doing it. You know, you don't have to get the results that you wish for, like the big results right away. The fact that you are working towards them is meaningful, and that should bring you joy. And you should really kind of value that effort that you put in. What do you think about this?
Well, I think it's one of the most important points of the whole chapter guide. I think someone else already said the same point earlier this week, but even with the point about like managing the expectations, I still want to ask you about, do you have anything like guide or something about how to keep people interested? Because I feel like in Lahti, for example, we have had many people who have came like 1 or 2 times in our meetings, but then never showed their face again. So
Yes,
how to get people
keep them
like
interested.
keep
get
them
it.
interested?
Well, one thing is to have important projects that the group feels are important. So you have to ask everybody who is involved, and not with a leading question like, isn't this a good idea, but just, is there anyone here who thinks this is a bad idea? All criticism is welcome. To have to make it clear that, and create an environment where people feel like they are not judged for their ideas and what they think. So that makes it easier to kind of see what people feel like. And for me, I think I just tried to make sure that everybody was on the same page, like we had a consensus on what we were doing. And the projects, I emphasized why they are important. When I started the chapter, I don't do it as much these days. I guess I have learned to be more efficient. But when I started coordinating, I made like these 20-page documents where I kind of put all my ideas and explained why they are important. And then I explained it in the meetings, like why I want to do this. What do you think? Is this important? And this kind of encouraged people to see that this is actually a really good thing, and I should work for this thing because I have this explanation for why it is important, and have easy enough tasks for people. But you won't be able to have all the people stay who come in. I mean, you cannot reach everybody. Some people, maybe they are looking for something else. They are not completely ready for these kind of ideas or these kind of projects. Maybe they don't have the free time. maybe they didn't understand everything perfectly and need more time, or are scared by some of the projects that you do. Maybe they're too big or something like that. But just if you feel like if there's new people, it's good to um, create an environment where they feel safe, like you to tell what they think, and you should ask them what they think, what they want to do, what they are interested in, and if they leave, you can ask, like, I haven't seen you in a while. Why is that? Is there something that you think we should do different, or can I help you with something, and that might help get them back. But you won't be it's kind of impossible to keep everybody, but you can work to make the environment so that it facilitates the involvement of everybody. I hope that helps.
Yeah, I think that my biggest problem in coordinating the Lahti chapter is that we, like 6 months ago, reached a consensus of only 3 people about to or like start having these discussion meetups. So after that, we have been having these discussion meetups, but we have not discussed about the future of Lahti chapter, and we have not discussed about Lahti chapter at all. And the 3 people, me and 2 other people who were the first ones in our chapter, there are only me left of those 3. So the people have changed. So I think it would be important to us to have the discussion about our chapter's future together.
Definitely.
And reach new consensus.
Yes. I would start by having an easily set up hub for your chapter. For example, a Discord server for a Lahti chapter, or a channel for your chapter would be something that you could use for your discussions and chat. Or, WhatsApp group, anything like that. And then a second thing, well, I don't think you need a website, but, well, no, that's not necessary for you. But just a group where you can actually have discussions. A Facebook group would be a good idea as well, maybe. Whatever your needs are. Have that, and then once you have that established and you have your meetings, and I think you should just agree that you should talk about the future of the chapter in Lahti and make a plan. Like we made a plan at the very beginning when we had made the website and a Facebook page for the Zeitgeist movement Finland. We figured out, okay, what's the next thing that needs to happen, and then we had a meeting where we discussed, made plans for the next 3 years of activism in Finland, and for each year we brainstormed some goals, and you could do the same thing. Where do you want the Lahti chapter to be in 3 years? What sort of things do you want to achieve? And what is a reasonable time frame for achieving those? Make a kind of roadmap for your chapter there, and then introduce all the new members who come to the roadmap and show what you are striving towards. And that's something that we will actually go through here in the next meeting tomorrow as well for the Finnish chapter. So definitely you should have that discussion and involve everybody in it, and keep it realistic. Don't make promises that you cannot keep. And you might have to find a new coordinator there, but I think it would be very important for the plans to be so that that they are not reliant upon specific people, because the people might change. So you should have this roadmap, and it should be adjustable.
Yeah, we right now have this great sustainability problem, because every one of our group is young people who I suppose are moving out of Lahti in a couple of years. So it would be so much better if we had some people involved who are planning to stay in Lahti.
I agree. That's a problem, but it's not impossible to solve. But I think you should start reaching out and not just keep it in group, but actually reach out to other people and make it public and make your discussion groups public as well. That's a good place to start. But you do need to find a coordinator who stays there. I think, or at least like a second coordinator that can be there when you are, for example, away. So that's something that needs to happen, I think, in order to keep the local activities going, because it's a local chapter. For a national chapter, it's not as important. For example, I know of people who live in Canada and have started a chapter in India and I think in China as well. So you can and actually one of the coordinators for the Arabic chapter that has hundreds of thousands of followers he lives in Sweden. So it's not as important at the national level where the coordinator is, because the things that you do are like larger projects, and you only need to be there when you have like live events. And when it's a country, you're not really able to meet face to face with everybody who is involved, because in Finland we have people from many different cities, and it would be logistically expensive and difficult and time consuming if we didn't have the comfort of meeting online like this. All of us are in different cities at the moment, so that's just an example. But for local chapters, it's a bit different. Do you have any other questions regarding this, you or Marco?
Well, nothing comes to mind at the moment.
Okay. Then we can continue. I will share my screen again with the guidelines for coordinating. So I already mentioned the kind of leaders in the movement are necessary. But what does this actually mean? So the good managers and coordinators are a key to large-scale community organizing. It's an unfortunate fact that people are not so self-organized as we might wish, but we should definitely encourage everybody to do that. But these coordinators do not tell other people what to do, but they help these other people to take charge of what is needed. And the coordinator does not grab like a center stage and want attention, but they try to push others, not push, but kind of pull others onto the stage. They don't want, coordinators should not want to be a leader or the leader. They shouldn't think of themselves that way, but they should help others become their own leaders. And, you know, I always say I help to coordinate the Finnish chapter. I am a part of the core team. Only rarely do I say that I am the coordinator of the Finnish chapter. Are you still there?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yes.
we just lost your video. Now it's
Okay, back online, good. Very good, so you heard me. All right,
Yes.
let me just put this full screen. All right. So, you shouldn't want to be the leader, but help others become leaders and create more leaders. And that's your kind of goal also. And that's how the organization can expand and continue and be sustainable. And as a definition, a leader can be defined as a proactive member instead of a reactive or a passive one. So that's one of the key understandings that I had when I started was that you have to be proactive and not reactive, and you try to make others proactive as well and encourage them to do so at their own pace. Okay. So more important guidelines. It is important to create an example and lead by example. So show others what you mean, and show others how to be proactive, how to go about activism in this volunteer organization. Inspire them by your actions, and not just words. So that's something that's really important, and people learn from this when they have like a reference, and they imitate one another. So it's a good thing to show how to do things. You should make a proposal document that clearly articulates your idea and the reasons for that project, and this helps others to visualize it and become involved, because if they don't understand it, they won't get involved in your project, whatever it is that your chapter needs. Okay, so that's really important, and that helps to fight confusion. It's also important to divide and delegate work as much as you can. So divide all these projects into chunks that people can comprehend and that they can reasonably be expected to do, and agree who will take on these tasks, and then make sure that they are able to do it, and let them carry out it in their own way. A coordinator usually has ideas about how to do all the things that they have kind of visualized in their head, but you have to allow others to do them in their own way. And also check on the progress. So it's really surprisingly important that you show that you care, that there is progress on the project. So people feel better and they feel more valued if you are interested in how the project is getting along and whether it is getting done. So it's also important for a coordinator to ask and keep like some sort of list of projects that are going on. And when somebody agrees to take on a responsibility, you should write it down. Like, this person agreed to do this and this thing, and write it down somewhere so you can check later on and remember that this is something that they promised to do, and then you can ask how it is getting along, if they need any help, because people can get discouraged, they can feel overwhelmed, and then they can just drop out of activity because they don't want to say that they couldn't get it done, and they as time moves forward they become more and more stressed about it, and that discourages them and drives them away. So it's important to be aware of what's going on, who is doing what, and that's I cannot do that myself without having a list. So that's really something that you should pay attention to. And yeah, it says here that the failure in this is likely to lead to disappointment or worse, mainly due to the diffusion of responsibility effect. So when you divide and delegate work, it's also really important to keep in mind that if you delegate something to more than one person, you have to make sure that they know that who is responsible for what, and that they are proactive. Both of them are proactive, because if you become reactive in a group, then nothing gets done and the responsibility diffuses. So you have to be aware of that effect always. And identify areas of partial consensus, suggesting tabling the question or writing it down, making it easily understandable, and you can create small groups to deal with it in a manner that is convenient with them, and when they feel like doing it. There should be it's reasonable to have some sort of a deadline for any project, so it helps to get it done when you have a deadline. And if somebody doesn't meet it, a coordinator should always be very encouraging, understanding, it's a volunteer organization and a volunteer work, so do not get mad if somebody doesn't do something on time. Just understand that, okay, that just means that our evaluation of the time it takes to do this project was wrong. So next time maybe we can evaluate things better. And you don't always have to have, as a side note, a perfect consensus on everything. Sometimes that takes a lot of time. So if there is a couple of people who do not completely agree with something, you can always ask that if it's not like something that might harm anything, then if they can just provide their criticism and ways to make it better, and if they agree that it's better to move forward than to discuss it further, because at some point in your meetings it may come to a point where the discussion is preventing action, so you have to be aware of that as well, and strive for rational consensus and everything, but be prepared to have also sometimes just partial consensus. We've had that once or twice in the 4 years of activity here, and each of those cases were something that the person who was not in agreement, however, agreed that it's better to just do it than to continue discussing about it indefinitely. So that's something that's good to remember when you decide on tasks and when you divide them and delegate them. And in that case, that I remember, the person who didn't want to agree or didn't agree also said that they won't do it and they won't have anything to do with the project. And we agreed that that's okay. I mean, they were free to decide that. But it didn't create any conflict, because we all understood that we are all here for the same purpose. We have the same goal, and we understand the ways that the chapter works, which is this consensus-based decision and dividing and delegating work. And just to touch on this, which I already mentioned, appreciate all contributions, no matter how small. So all the efforts that people give in conversations, when they comment on things, when they participate at meetings, and you should always thank them for the contribution. And you shouldn't feel like some people need to deliver or I mean, nobody should really feel like they should be thanked or receive some appraisal for what they have done, but it still helps the team effort if you show gratitude and appreciation. It's a kind of natural social thing for humans, at least, you know, if not in our nature, at least that's what we have grown up to appreciate. So without going into that in more detail, it's just a good thing to do. It helps the chapter, and helps to encourage people, and gives confidence. I think, yeah, I will just go through one or two more, and then we can discuss these. If you have something to comment, always welcome, as a coordinator, always welcome constructive criticism. You must be open to criticism. People need to be available. People need to be. They need to know that they can say what they think and not be afraid of what they think. You shouldn't throw anybody away because they think differently or criticize you. For some people, accepting this criticism may be difficult, but it is critical not to feel attacked. I mean, we've had people in the chapter who have a very frank way of speaking. They say exactly what's in their heads, and they don't say it in a nice way. They just say what they think, and you should never feel attacked. You should appreciate the fact that they give their ideas, they give their feedback and their criticism, because criticism can make your work more efficient. It can make your work better. It can help you get to your goals quicker. So always welcome criticism, and do not think of it as a personal attack. If something is a personal attack, then you should discuss it with the group. Like, I felt this was inappropriate, but but try not to get hurt. Just focus on what's important and try to alleviate the. And if you feel like other people feel like are responding to it emotionally, then try to remind people that we are all working for the same cause, and I'm sure that everybody here appreciates the work everybody's doing, and remind them that we don't want to hurt each other. We want to work together, and it's okay to give criticism, and I'm sure that it wasn't a personal attack. That's part of the. Sometimes a coordinator has to kind of help in that sense. What do you think about these important guidelines about leadership, about leading by example, about delegating work and appreciating contributions and welcoming criticism? Let me just take the screen sharing off. Okay, what do you think?
Well, I can still hear myself.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I wonder if that's me. I can mute myself.
Okay. Yeah, it's better now. So I wanna ask you about delegating work and like still appreciating all contributions, because I think you are a great example about how to do it like precisely, because as I said previously, for me in the beginning it was easy because you did I felt like I contributed enough by being present, but at some point you started to like give responsibilities, just a little chunks, as is stated here, bite-sized chunks. But my question is, where do you like notice that the person is ready to like to take responsibilities and not to be afraid of them?
I can't hear you, Timo.
Oh yeah, of course,
Yeah.
I muted myself. So I think when you see that somebody is interested in something, you see it when they comment on things on meetings, and they show that they are they are becoming proactive. They comment themselves, not just when they are asked, but when they actually comment on also things that you don't ask them to comment. And for example, in the Facebook group or whatever platform you use, if you see people start commenting on things or giving ideas, you know that they want to do something more. And you can just ask. I don't always have any intuition on whether somebody is ready. I just have shitloads of things to do myself, and I cannot do it all myself. So I ask politely, individually, in a meeting. First, I ask if anybody wants to do this. If somebody wants to volunteer, I wait for 20 seconds until it gets uncomfortable for people, and maybe somebody is pressured to take responsibility because they are kind of ready for it, or they feel like it's better to take it. And if nobody does it, then I usually ask individually the people who have been proactive. So you had been. So I don't remember what I asked you to do, but I probably asked if you would feel comfortable with taking a specific project to be your responsibility, meaning that you will see that it gets done for a certain time, and said that you can, of course, you can ask for help, and if you feel like you want to discuss it, you can bring it forward and we can discuss it in the next meeting and so on, and make it so easy for people that they don't feel discouraged or afraid of the project, whatever it is. and you can just, it's like fishing. You just throwing the nets or the the seam and and the lure, and just see if somebody takes the bait. That's how you kind of get the volunteers. But I always ask everybody and ask individually, and yeah, that's the only way I know how to do it, I think.
Yeah, thank you. It was really helpful answer, especially the point about you can see when people are proactive that they are interested in the project.
Definitely.
Thank you.
No worries. Marco, do you have anything you want to ask?
Actually, I was about to ask the same thing that you so asked about. And you already replied to my question in that way. But it was a very good example, the fishing part. And you know, uh, I have never really, in the Seinäjoki asked individually from people that if they want to do some specific thing. But that was helpful to acknowledge
Well, that's
that.
good to hear. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's really good to hear that it's helpful. These kinds of understandings, I'm really glad that I can share, because I don't really. I mean, I guess you just see. I mean, I've tried a lot of things, and a lot of them didn't work. Unfortunately, I haven't like kept any notebooks about my mistakes. I've only noted down what works, but I think in the beginning I used a lot of time making a lot of notes. I tried a lot of different, like I had Google Sheets where I had data about certain things that we did, and I guess you just try things, and if they don't work, then they just you forget them somewhere or archive them somewhere and move on to do something more efficient. But there's this sort of learning process. Like you should just try what feels comfortable for you, what you think might work, and if it doesn't, leave it. Try to think about something else. Always, as a coordinator, think about what would be a more efficient way of accomplishing this goal that I have. I'm doing something now and I'm comfortable with it. I know how it works, but you should never stop there. You should always try to develop and learn new things. Okay, but let's continue. I will share my screen again. And so after the criticism comes to help people to believe in themselves. So you have a good manager or leader builds people's confidence so that they can accomplish what they never thought that they could accomplish before. And the kind of unflagging optimism of a manager or a coordinator or leader energizes everyone and is vital to inspire trust, as people are unlikely to help if they have no trust that something will be accomplished. For example, always maintain the highest standards of honesty. Good managers have no difficulty in airing doubts about their own personal limitations. I wanted to read this completely because this is really important. You have to build people's confidence, and this happens step by step, as we've discussed. And they will as they move forward and take more responsibility, they will learn new things and they will accomplish things they didn't think they could. And this happens step by step, and you have to kind of help them forward and want them to accomplish these things. It's really amazing, and when you accomplish them yourself as a coordinator, you understand how valuable it is, how amazing it is, and you want others to experience that as well. So you want to give them things to do. You want to distribute the tasks you have. And it's my most difficult thing for me is to make people understand how amazing it is when they actually learn how to accomplish these things. It's not for everybody, but if you can make other people, even one or two other people to go through this process, then it's worth it, I think. And you know, the optimism. Do you think that I'm an optimistic, kind of optimistic leader in a sense, or optimistic coordinator? What?
Well, yeah, I think you are optimistic, but I still think that you are realistic in a way. I don't think that the future plans for Finnish chapter have never been like too big. They are always been realistic and well, yeah, I think you're optimistic but realistic.
Do I seem energized, happy? Do I seem like very, how do you say, excited about the things we do?
Yeah, I think you do, and the way you energize people is by giving an example, because we all can see how much you put effort in all our projects and in the Zeitgeist movement in general. You like use as much hours as we are all others combined.
What do you think, Marco? Do you have a similar opinion of me that Juuso has?
Well, yes. Yeah, I think you already said everything I was going to say.
Okay, so I think that it's partly an illusion that I have created knowingly, because I do feel stressed, tired, even hopeless sometimes. But when there is a meeting that I attend to, I always bring myself to a good mood, because I mean, or at least like pretend that I'm really happy about things. You know, sometimes, I mean, to be completely honest, sometimes you are just tired and miserable, but you are responsible as a coordinator for keeping up the momentum in the chapter, and a big part of that is the non-verbal communication. It's the tone of your voice, it's the excitement, the positivity, the realism and the optimism, and that helps to energize people. And also being honest, as was said, completely honest about your own capabilities, the capabilities of the chapter, the problems you are facing. If you have some problems in your life, you know, it's some very good idea for especially new chapters who need to form this friendship between these new people. It's important to start a new meeting every time by going through everybody, asking how they're been, a little like update on how they're doing. It helps to build the community, helps to build friendships and connectivity, and that also is something that helps people come back and you know, keep coming to the meetings. That I now just realized that it's actually the community. Like, if you feel connected to these people, you don't want to leave them. You want to come back, and that's something that's also really good. So, but it also, you know, helps to energize people if you seem happy. And it's not like I pretend 90% of the time. It's like maybe 4 times during the last 4 years, I'm quite a stable person. But because I guess because I'm an optimistic nihilist by I wouldn't say nature, but that's the way I think. But you know, every time before a meeting, I realize if I need to remind myself, then I remind myself that I'm responsible for the momentum that this chapter has. So I need to be happy about the things I do and appreciate what I do. And if I appreciate what I do, if I find it important, if I find it meaningful, then others will too. So what you want others to feel, you should also apply to yourself, I think. And if you have a hard time, if you are depressed, then you shouldn't possibly be hosting the meeting. You should be honest and say that I'm feeling down, and could somebody else do this, or can we postpone it until you can gather yourself. And just to put this out there, no coordinator should burden others or expect others to kind of heal you. You are there for them, for their service. They are not there for you. Nobody comes to the chapter and to work for you. You are there to work for them. That's what coordinators do. So don't pressure your already pressured volunteers with your problems. So that's a burden that the chapter coordinator has to do. And if there are off-topic meetings, or if you just have like live meetings without an agenda, then you can talk about your problems honestly as a person, but not as a coordinator, so to say. Is that clear enough? Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah, I think you had a great point about if you want people to feel a certain way, you need to apply it to yourself first.
Yes, I also understand it. I'm not the Zeitgeist movement is not there to heal me. I have friends for that.
Exactly, and you will get friends in the Zeitgeist movement as well, who can help you in many ways. But if you want to kind of any healing that you get from this work, I guess, should be directed in a way that you personally, just within your own head, feel good, feel accomplished when you do projects. So you kind of this can be an avenue through which you can accomplish things in your life and feel better about them. And when you start small, you get this feeling of accomplishment, and you can use that to take on a larger project and go forward with that, and always feel a little bit better about yourself as well. So that's something that you can do. To continue with the list, you should also remind others of this higher purpose, because that's what people volunteer for. They feel that they want to accomplish something big and something meaningful, and you need to articulate this purpose to start when you start organizing something, and use it when the occasion demands. Not always, but just as it's a thing that you can use as a I'm looking for the right word, but like as a powerful way to emphasize something. But if you use it too much, of course, it kind of loses its value in a way. But if you find people are having difficulties or motivational problems, remind them of this higher purpose in a way that you're kind of reminding yourself, but speaking out loud, that resonates with people. And also avoid doing most of the work. Divide the work, as we said. Don't try to run the whole show. Others will become less involved, and you will burn out. So that's really important. I will actually bold it in the document. So always try to get others to do your things. That's actually a more sustainable way of organizing a chapter. Another thing coordinators have to do is to be informed and inform. Keep yourself informed about what the chapter is doing. It's your responsibility to be informed and tell others what is going on. Update on new developments, new projects. Update all the people who are depending on that knowledge. Make sure that the information flows. And especially if somebody's counting on you for something, do it in a suitable time frame. So I always have like a week within which I have to answer. That's just I've made that for myself as a deadline. I have to answer within a week, and I always apologize deeply if I do not. And I try to answer as quick as possible. Well, you can read these more in detail later on, but basically, keep everything updated, everyone informed as much as possible. This facilitates more dynamic and more motivated work environment for everybody, and it also adds to the value people feel about the work that they do. And over time, keep track of the work that has been done and what is being done. Send reminders. Talk with each volunteer individually if you can and if you think it is needed, and make sure he or she understands the task at hand. And yeah, keep focus. That's one really important thing. Keep focus and keep it on action. So most people would prefer to do something instead of spending times just reaching consensus in meetings. So meetings are necessary, but keep the frequency low and the time short and the number of participants small in the meetings where you do some administrative decisions. But when you have projects, then you can have meetings as much as you need, because then people are actually working on something concrete, and that helps them to feel like they are actually achieving something. I mean, it's important for a coordinator to understand that there is a certain amount of this administrative work, this bureaucracy involved, and it's not like fun. It's repetitive, and it's you have to archive things and keep records and organize things, but that's just something that has to be done, and you should see it as the thing that enables you to do the other project. So it's really valuable, and you should also value it when you do it. But yeah, keep the focus on what is actually important, getting the word out there, doing projects. And when you get together, it should feel more like a recreation than work, no matter how serious the project you're doing. So those who understand this level of involvement as a coordinator stress the importance of having fun as equal to completing the projects. You need to have fun. You need to be able to connect with people, be happy to have fun together, and that's why we have these monthly or bi-monthly live meetings where we get together and do something fun. Like we had at my place a while back when we went to sauna and played billiards and had fun, discussed, listened to some music, and then next day we went to give flyers to the city center where there was this another event, and then we went to eat and stuff like that. So, and one time we went to play mini golf, and one time we went climbing and stuff like this. It's important to keep people involved, keep it rewarding for people, and to make it like more like a recreation than work, because people work already because they have to get paid for something. But you don't want them to be working on their free time. You want them to have fun and feel like they're actually getting something out of it, and that's what you should keep in mind. And as the last guideline, be patient. I mean, this cannot be stressed enough. You should really be patient with everything. You cannot demand top-level dedication or performance from everyone or anyone who is volunteering their free time. Losing your patience only makes things worse to you and to others. So patience in the work of TZM and coordination in general is not a virtue, it's a necessity. And please keep this in mind. I mean, some people, my temperament is more relaxed. I mean, I don't get emotionally involved in things as much, and I'm really patient, and I don't get angry uh, and stuff like that. So it's maybe easier for me. But if it's not easy for you, then learn the importance of being patient and understanding that what your demands need to be realistic, and if somebody cannot meet those demands, then you have to alter those demands, not the people who you are expecting to fulfill them. So that's something I want to stress. That's really important. Is there any ideas or questions you have at the moment?
Well, I'm. I don't know if we're going to. Well, I think we are going to address this in the future, but I want to ask about the point of being informed and informing, because you asked us to like make questions about coordinating in the preparation for this meetup, and especially for me the hardest part about coordinating the Finnish chapter would be international communication, because well, as of now I have I don't have so clear of a picture about how the international coordination works and communication and like interaction between different chapters, GCA and stuff like that.
Yeah, so I had no idea about anything when I came involved, when I started coordinating. So you just ask people that you meet, like, how do I get into contact with coordinators? And I got some contacts because I took part in the international meetings in TeamSpeak, monthly meetings. So they're every Wednesday at midnight in Finnish time. But if you go there, you'll get contacts and you can ask questions. And also, when I took part in the global main Zeta events in Berlin, for example, I got a lot of contacts there and friends, and that helped. But yeah, that's how you start figuring out and the network starts growing when you start proactively like looking for the information. You start getting contacts and the network grows. And well, you should be subscribed to all possible platforms that the movement has, like YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, TeamSpeak, now Discord, the website, newsletter, all the things that you can, like gather the information to yourself, and then you know that if something happens, you should know about it. And the GCA, well, you can contact me because I'm a part of it. And for anybody like else, if somebody is a coordinator, of course they know me, so they can contact me. But if something has happened to me, I don't exist, then I think you should find it in the website. It's chapter support at the zeitgeistmovement.com, I think, the email, but you can check that out. And there's TZM chapters Facebook page and the international meetings. That's a good place to start. You can ask questions there. There's always an open floor after the event where you can ask questions. And yeah, I think just start from there. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
What about Marco? Do you have any things you want to say?
Well, I was gonna ask about the global projects. Is there any website or place where they are, open to see for everyone?
Well, our main website, the zeitgeistmovement.com, I think it has that. At the moment, it's down under maintenance, but as you know, there should be once it's up a projects page, and I think we can also organize projects through our Discord. So that's something that we have projects and development there. So there, we have some projects listed already there, and we will continue developing that. I think global projects. Yeah, that's something that we are starting to do more, and Discord is one hub where we can start that, but they will be listed in the main website.
Yeah, yeah. Well, that answered my question. I just think that it's important thing to have one place where we have all the projects, so people can see if there's one project that they have come up with and they want to do, but they like see that no one is doing it, so they can like inform others that they are doing it and put it there. And yeah.
Definitely. So yeah, we should do that definitely. Um, One thing is to make a Trello for the global community that I've been thinking about, because we have one for the Finnish chapter, and we could basically just translate it, and those projects could be global, most of them. So that's something that we can do, and then you can see if somebody's working on them. But yeah, that's a good idea. Okay, to continue with the last part of the document before our Q&A. So, and kind of free discussion is those tips from coordinators, but I think that you can read them on your own time as well. A lot of these things have been said, but what I've underlined there is like actually very few people will be capable and willing to grasp the core direction, and these few are the ones who will form the core groups. And this was a surprise for me, because I thought that like everybody, like me, everyone else fully understands the movement before they get involved. But that's not the case. People often get involved because they have, they feel like they have this strong feeling that something needs to be done and they need to do something. And before they have even researched the things completely, as soon as they are like convinced, they become active and they want to do something. I had that feeling as well, but my first thing was that I'm not going to do anything before I know exactly like if this is a good idea or not. So I spent years researching these things before I even became active at all. And the movement in Finland had died before I became active. So not everybody understands the core as well as you think. So it is good. It's a good idea to help to also remind people that they have to educate themselves and others, and that's just a good thing to know. And also, if you get it, others will also. So it's not like impossible for those people to understand, but yeah, as a coordinator, your role is to meet the various needs of all people that are attracted to TZM based on their own level of understanding and commitment. So if somebody comes who has a lower level of understanding and you can see that, then you don't give them the most difficult tasks. You give them tasks where they will learn more, and then gradually they will become to understand the train of thought more as they are involved, as they engage with us and engage with the projects and the movement itself. So that's a learning process. And I think of the movement as a kind of engine that pumps out deep thinkers, but the kind of material that we take in is usually people who have just realized that the the worldview that they have had is basically an illusion. They have assured themselves all their lives that what they think is the truth. Like they know how the world works and how things are, but actually when they start seeing like the structural problems of our society, and start seeing past the basic arguments of human nature and and well, what kind of basic arguments there are, like utopia arguments, and there isn't enough resources, sorts of things, and we don't have the technology. When they start understanding actually what the human species is capable of technically, scientifically, when they start understanding that a new kind of world would be possible, and that it's not a human nature problem because the human nature is to adapt, then they will start, understanding more, being more capable of doing things more. I kind of lost my track of what my point was, but people will learn, and they will understand better, and then they will be better able to. Well, oh no, now I remember. So that's the kind of material that comes to the movement. So a bit confused, not completely aware of all the problems of the society yet, and not completely aware of the solutions, and there's a lot of confusion there. And I think the way from ignorance and kind of this, well, the way from ignorance to understanding the scientific way, it goes through pseudoscience and a lot of these kind of ideas that are not supported. But once you start questioning everything, which is a good thing, but you don't maybe have the standards of deciding what to believe and what not believe. That comes later, and you can help people with that. But you have to be understanding that not everybody understands things as well as you do, and be kind of compassionate towards them. It's a learning process, and the purpose of the movement is to make people who are unknowingly living in the illusion that everything is all right in the world, and that we don't need to do anything, or that we cannot do anything, or any of these kind of false ideas, and logical fallacies. You help them forward. That's the task of the movement, to create thinkers. So keep that in mind as a coordinator, and commit yourself to the work. Remember that the evidence speaks for itself. Your job is to make the information available to people, and make sure to communicate and amplify the fact that this is a leaderless movement, and therefore the input from all people is equal and necessary. And put the emphasis on spreading the methodology. The movement is based upon the methodology that the movement is based upon, the workings of the scientific method, in itself doesn't matter. You should always remember that. There is the value that the movement has is in the train of thought. It's in the resource-based economy concept, and the understandings that we have of the structural way the society works and the economy, and how to transform it into a more sustainable paradigm. So that's what's valuable. And the movement exists as a way to get people to understand that. So when you advertise for the ideas, advertise for the valuable things, and not so much the movement. The movement is just a way to get people involved. So remember that as well. And the goal of TZM is to create a mass of people, a lot of people who understand this new world that could be possible if we applied the scientific method for social concern. So, and in a strategic way. So those are kind of the core things to keep in mind as a coordinator. I think that pretty much sums it up. And if you review this document, you will see that coordinators basically they help people to understand these things and to work on projects that get the message out there, and they help people take tasks as their responsibilities, and they distribute these tasks, and they help people communicate with each other. They make sure that the structure of the chapter is updated, and that it evolves, and that the work environment is good, and that everybody is responded to, and everybody can contribute, and the momentum keeps going in a positive way. So. And also keep it sustainable. So the coordinator should always try to keep the chapter sustainable. Always be looking for new coordinators, new members, and be willing to let the movement and let the chapter evolve. And always, what I always do, like almost daily, I try to think of ways to make the movement better. I don't want to support something that's not like as good as it could be. I want to support the best thing available, and the best thing available at the moment for me is the Zeitgeist movement, because it's based on the scientific understandings and the structural and holistic view. So I want to make it even better, and you should try to do that as well. And I want to make the chapter more efficient, and I want to make the chapter to work better. So I always think about new ways of doing things, and try to keep people involved and happy with the work that we do, and take into account what people think. So I think that's pretty much sums it up. Let me see what else we had for today. Well, it's the second part, basically how to be aware of what's going on, how to do things in practice. So if you want to have some questions or a little break at some point, we can have a little break before we I think like 20-30 minutes. Is that okay if we spend that, or maybe like 20 minutes still? What do you think?
Yeah, it's fine by me.
You mean like 30 minutes and we're done?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fine.
All right. Well, do you want to have a small break?
I don't need a break.
Me neither.
All right, let's go then. It's good for the people who watch this recording then as well, so we know how to cut anything. Do you have any comments on any of the introduction that I gave you on coordination? I hope it covers most of the things that coordinators do, what they have to keep in mind, the expectations, and the reality and the development of chapters. I hope that helps as an introduction. But do you have anything that confuses you?
No, I think the text answered most of the questions itself.
Yeah, what about Marco?
Well, I don't have any questions right now.
Okay, and when we meet tomorrow, if you have some questions that come up to you later on, then write them down and ask them tomorrow. We can, for example, start with those tomorrow, and you can still ask them later on today if you feel like it. But I want to first tell you like my typical day, and this is in Finnish, so there's not such a strong reason to share my screen, so I will stop sharing my screen. And So my typical day, basically, it goes like this, and this is a day of a coordinator. So I think you can learn a lot from this personal experience. First of all, I wake up. I think about the things I need to do that day, as you usually do when you wake up, and one of those things is usually the fact that you're a coordinator, you're responsible for a chapter. So if you have any tasks that are going on that you're responsible for, or that people depend on you for something, you make sure that you do the things that you have promised to do in time. So be aware of what is going on, what projects are going on, what is going on, and make sure that those tasks get done. It's important that you are an example for others. Lead by example. So in practice, that's what happens, Then I check if there's any messages from Facebook or Discord, and I answer or the email, and I answer the most urgent ones immediately. Usually there aren't too many, like every day, so it's manageable for one person. And the rest I answer when I can, but usually always within a week. If I do not remember, I always say I'm really sorry, and it's my fault. So it's not like it takes a lot of time. Usually, you're on your phone anyways, or when you're on the computer, it's easy enough to check Facebook, check Discord, and to see if there's any messages. I have the email of the chapter. It's directed to my own email, so I get notifications on my phone if there's any emails. So I don't have to check it like regularly. I know if there's any emails. And then, if there's a meeting coming up, like a chapter meeting, then I will think about when can I plan the agenda of the meeting and what the meeting is for. Basically, these meetings, as you know, in the Finnish chapter we use the Facebook chats timetable questionnaire to agree on a time every week or every other week. So that's what we use now. We used to use when to meet, where you can add that's when and number 2 and meet, and you can find it online, and that's what we use to kind of agree on a time. And before that we used Doodle, and we have also had regular times for meetings, so that's also an option when the chapter feels like regular times would be better than just agreeing on a time individually. So whatever works, this changes from time to time. But when you know that you have a chapter meeting coming up, you think about when you can plan the agenda and what is the purpose of the meeting. I will come back to that later. I'm also always aware if I've had any requests for interviews or something. I regularly follow the movement's communicational platform, so I get to know if any requests come in. And I remember that the image of I remember that the image of the movement is the responsibility of me, because I'm the coordinator, and it will be your responsibility when you're the coordinator. So the image is responsible from the speed and the quality of the responses. And as a starting coordinator, if you feel like the quality of your response is not optimal, then you can always ask others to peer review it and before you send it forward. And you do your best. And that's one reason why you need to know your material well, because then you know what the movement thinks, and your your responses will be better. I also always keep in mind this quote from Chuck Fresco: "Everything that happens is real. What you think should happen is unreal, and that's what people get disappointed at." So I think you should really take that into your heart. Like, everything that happens is real. You may have any expectations on what will happen, and if that doesn't happen, you might get disappointed or discouraged. But you shouldn't. You shouldn't be disappointed. You shouldn't be discouraged, because that just means that's feedback. That's data that tells you that, okay, I made a mistake in my calculations. My expectations were wrong. So respect what happens. That's the real thing. And you get disappointed by your expectations. So always try to keep those expectations realistic as a coordinator. And if you feel like something's not working great, then you just have to reevaluate your expectations. And that helps you to remember that not everything goes the way you want and as fast as you want. But you have to be able to change your plans. And you can never blame others if they haven't, done enough, if you think so. Everybody gives us as much as they can when they can, and as much as they want to give. And the movement is based on volunteer work. You can always, of course, remind people, and in a polite way state and that if you don't get this done, there's it's harmful for the chapter or me or the movement if somebody doesn't do the task that they are responsible for. But you have to think about it in this way, that before you give this criticism for anybody, and I hope you still hear me. The same thing happened again with the So you have to know that you have to kind of forgive the people that you're going to remind before you even bring it up. You know what I mean? Like, before you remind somebody that, okay, the fact that you didn't tell me that you were not going to do this was harmful for my efforts. I don't think I've ever said that to anyone, so I cannot recommend it. But always forgive people in advance. Don't blame them on anything. It's just your expectations. And it's a volunteer movement. And when you talk to people, if you don't know NVC, nonviolent communication, you should really Google it and see what the kind of needs and wants are that people have, and how to discuss things in a way that doesn't create conflict. So it's a good thing to know and master. I always think, and this is all of this happens kind of unconsciously. I have understood these things, so I don't have to consciously think about it. But every day I am aware of these things, and I have I want to read the rest as well. So I think I've said this already, that I always think what the movement in Finland should do next, and what we should do globally next. I always think if there's any problems in the movement, and think if there are, how can we solve those problems? How can we make this better? That's a good thing for a coordinator to think, always be willing to see if there's any problems in what you're doing. You don't want to spend your efforts into advocating for something that's wrong or problematic. You want to fix it or quit. But I think first you try to fix it. If you can't, then you have no choice. But this is so valuable that you shouldn't quit if you run into problems as a coordinator. And you can get help. You can always get help. I always keep in mind when the next meetings are, and what our objectives and goals are next, and how we could best reach them. So I keep thinking about this, I don't want to waste any time. I want to move forward as efficiently as I can. So that's what I keep in mind. I always tell myself that I'm doing my best. There's a lot of problems in the world, and it can be really discouraging and depressing. But what can you do? You have a limited amount of hours, and if you use your time on this planet effectively, helping others as much as you can, but doing it sustainably, meaning that you're allowed to have fun, you're allowed to have free time, you're allowed to have friends and do other things as well. Otherwise, you will burn out, and that will be really unsustainable and inefficient activism. So, a coordinator needs to be aware of this and know that they are doing their best. They give as much as they can, but not more. And that gives you a sort of a balanced and a peaceful mind. And you can face the problems of the planet because you can always say, well, I'm kind of working on this problem. If there's poaching in Africa, well, we're already working on it because we're working on the inequality in the world that creates this problem in the first place. There's gender inequality. We're working on a more egalitarian social system, with less stress and more resources to focus on these problems. Almost any problem that you have it's a technical problem. It has a structural root, and that's what we're about. And you can always say to yourself that I'm working on this, and I'm already doing as much as I can reasonably ask from myself, and be honest about yourself and to yourself. So that gives you a sort of balance in life, but this does really require that you really do things. So you cannot just say that I'm doing, but you actually have to do things. And every day I kind of think if there is something that I can do today that would take the movement forward. It makes me function and it gives me a really good mood and a really purposeful feeling. So it's the action in itself is rewarding for me. And that's, I think, what coordination should be all about. I have understood that there is this bureaucracy, as I mentioned, in everything. Like if you try to do something like large scale, there's a lot of files that you need to take care of, archive, update, upkeep, and there is also this indirectly useful thing, or all these things like discussing how the group should work, solving in-group problems, and encouraging keeping up the group spirit and all these things, which is important. Not particularly taking forward things that we want to see in the world, but it's really important because it indirectly helps the group spirit. It helps. It lets the members an opportunity to discuss the problems that they are experiencing, so they won't leave the group because of that, which would eat the motivation from others, for example. And it takes a lot of patience because there is this kind of indirect things that you have to do, and it takes planning and action, meta action for action, and this is always in my subconscious, so you get used to it, and you kind of a coordinator should, I think, build up this kind of understanding that it's instinctive, that you don't even think about it anymore. You just know that it needs to be done, and it's fine. You want to do it, and that's something that you should do. But you should always keep in mind that you should have a minimum amount of this meta action, because we have limited resources and limited time, and we want to focus that on outwards reaching, spraying of the knowledge, and raising the awareness and support of the movement and our ideas. And I'm also always looking for ways to lessen this bureaucracy by using more efficient platforms and practices. So always try to minimize it, but do not ignore it. it's important. So how does this? How can you do this in practice? How can you know what is going on? Well, you can check the note. This is really important, I think, for a coordinator. You should check what the notes say from the previous meeting, which means that you always have to make notes from a meeting, and all either during the meeting or after it. And you should ask. I mean, you should write down what we agreed upon and who agreed to do what. So that way you can always go back and check what is going on, who is doing what. And this is the practical side. You can use whatever. We use Trello at the moment to do these notes. We have in the previous, when the movement started, we used Google Docs a lot. So there's a different platforms that you can use. I also used to do updates, like a sort of summary of the meeting to Facebook. So you can find those in our Facebook group if you go back far enough. But at the moment, we're just using this one Trello card to do these things. But it's a good way to remind what is the logical place to continue, what we agreed upon before, and what the movement, what the chapter is striving towards. What are our goals? So that's really important to keep in mind. What's the purpose of the meetings? What we want to do next, and keep in mind what the purpose is for all the things that we do. And also, you have to check the communicational platforms, as I said, Trello, email. Is there some things that should have been done that haven't yet been done to completion? And this is why we have the Trello, and we have there the new that I just created, this kind of list of tasks that are ongoing that you can use to write your own things there, what you want to do next regarding the Zeitgeist movement. It's really good. I've used that for the whole time that I've been a coordinator. I've always had a list of things that I need to do next. When I get an idea, I write it down. I think that's a good idea. My memory does not work so that I remember every thought I had that was useful. I do forget them, so I always try to write things down even in the middle of the night sometimes. I check my calendar if there's any meetings that are coming or events that are coming, and if I need to know something about them beforehand, if I need to prepare for them. That's a responsibility of a coordinator. And always see what has been discussed in the chapter chats discussions. So all of this, the practical side, it's built upon the fact that previously everything has been done in a logical way that has preserved everything all essential information, and and everything has been done in a way that makes it possible for you to search that information easily. So that's why we make the notes and archive files, and sometimes we record our meetings and archive them and stuff like that. So it's useful later on, possibly. And yeah, you already know what we do, how we do things in Finland. Maybe not the ones who are looking at this recording, but in the next meeting we will go into more detail about how to organize a meeting, and what kind of platforms we use and for what reasons. And that's basically it. But as of now, and next time we will have more time to discuss, and I can share you things maybe that I didn't have time to share today. But do you have any questions from the meeting today? What kind of feeling do you have? What do you think about the coordination now? Is there anything new that you learned, or anything that you're confused about?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I I think I feel inspired and excited to. Well, I think I have so many ideas to share with the Lahti chapter, and I think we could really improve the local chapter there. I feel like we have stayed in like comfort zone for too long now, and I think we have to start moving forward.
That's a good point. You don't want to stay in your comfort zone. That's everything changes, and eventually that will degrade. And it's better if you do it consciously and create, new ways of doing things, and create a new larger comfort zone and challenge yourself. So yeah, it's necessary. What about Marco? What do you think?
Well, I don't have any questions either, but I certainly learned a bunch of new things in this meeting, and that was actually why I attended this meeting, because I wanted to learn more. So, thank you. It's just been a pleasure.
Yeah, my pleasure as well. Um, I'm interested if you remember specific things what you learned today. Could you share with me?
Well, for example, the about the coordinators, point of view, the attitude that the coordinator should have towards the movement and other members of the movement.
Yeah.
I don't think I can put it more specific, but something
Well,
like
that's
that.
really important.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. That's actually the most important thing, to understand the way a coordinator should think, way the coordinator should respond to things and react to things, and what they should take into account beforehand and during things that are happening, and what their responsibilities are, where they are needed, and in what ways. It is it's a skill that you will get better at when you start, but it's a really good thing that to have that mindset, to begin with. That's really important. What about you? So, what did you learn today? Can you share something?
Yeah, well, I learned basically all these things that I could be doing in Lahti and in coordinating in general. For example, I realized that I should inform people in Lahti more about what the Finnish chapter and the global chapter is doing. And yeah, I have think that maybe they are not interested in that kind of stuff, but I I think I should ask them first, and if they are not, then not to tell. But I think they might still be. So that is one of the things I should start doing in Lahti.
What do you think? Was there anything that you already knew that you were already doing, like what you were doing correctly? Did you find some things like obvious, or some things that reinforced what you've been doing?
Well, I think the one thing we have been doing correctly and fine in Lahti is making the meetings like fun to attend to, so people it makes easier to get new people involved and like that. But it has been, I think the way we have managed to do that is we have had these interesting topics which we have discussed, but for now I think it's getting harder and harder to find the right topics to talk about. So it's I think we should have much earlier started to like criticize and find the ways to improve our chapter in Lahti. We really haven't done that at all.
Very good. So really valuable insight then. What about Marco? Do you have anything to share about the things that you got confirmation on?
Well, some things that I have already done in the Seinäjoki chapter, like, you know, in the Facebook group, I have shared the projects of the national chapter and the Discord server there, and I'm planning to do more. And I got confirmation that we're on the right track right now. So, yeah.
Excellent. Really good. So if you don't have any more questions, I think one thing when you have meetings, a coordinator is usually the one who also acts as the person who kind of directs the flow of the conversation and make sure everybody has a voice and can attend and ask questions. And I think that, maybe I asked at the relevant points when you wanted to ask questions, so maybe you don't have as much at the end, which is all right. But just to summarize what we did today, so we went quite extensively into the introduction on what it is like to coordinate. And for the specifics, I encourage everybody to read the chapter's guide. You can find a link to it in the introduction to coordinating in TZM document, and a link to that should be in the description of this video. And if not, contact me. Basically, we went through what coordination is, what the responsibilities are, what coordinators should actually do. Chapters. Something about chapter and subchapter structures and processes, multiple coordinators, managing expectations, and then we went through the guidelines of coordinating, the important insights that you should have, and tips from coordinators a little bit. If we have a meeting in Sunday, we will have other coordinators sharing their experiences, and we can ask questions and learn from each other. And tomorrow, and then of course we went through how to stay up to date on what's going on, and how to run a chapter in practice. So it's a lot about organizing those meetings where you then collectively come to a consensus on what needs to be done. So you just be aware of what's being done and who is doing what, and the purpose for why things are, what the goal is. The goals are something you keep in mind as a coordinator as well. So the practice is dependent on the platforms you use, but there are some things that I went through as a typical day, what I think about these things, and then what I do in practice. So I hope that helped. And if you have anything you want to share at the end, please do. And tomorrow we can continue with the rest of the topics. I think for this short course on becoming a coordinator, which I think will help you get things started, get you on the right track, and then You can, of course, ask other coordinators how they do things always, and ask me as well. Yeah. Any last thoughts?
Well, I just want to thank you for this discussion of today.
Thanks. Same to you.
There may be some random comments of mine in the audio track, but never mind. Yeah, it was a nice discussion, and yeah, goodbye.
Yeah, thank you a lot for attending, Marco, as well, and you as well. So, see you tomorrow, and yeah, please send me the file, Marco, of this recording. Share it with me.
Sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
thank you. See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow. Bye.